politically unstable. Today, Jonathan Fahey is joining me. He's a lawyer and the former acting director of ICE, and we're going to talk things all due process around deporting illegal aliens. So, Jonathan, jumping off here, there's been a lot of talk in the media about illegal aliens not getting their due process. I think there's some confusion between criminal due process and crossing the border illegally and ICE due process. Can you walk us through those differences and what due process means in both cases?
Yeah, I think what people generally talk about when they talk about due process, just generally, and what a lot of the media is doing on this particular issue, they talk about due process criminally, like under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, where people have a right to a jury trial. They can't, they have to go through, they have rights to certain levels of appeal, to certain levels of process and burdens of proof and things of that nature. And these are things, if somebody is accused of a crime, they have all of these things. They have a right to have a lawyer. They have a right to have a jury trial. They have a right to challenge the admission of certain evidence. They have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If they lose at trial, they can appeal to an appellate court and ultimately maybe to the Supreme Court. If somebody is charged with an immigration offense, it's a lot different, and I think what a lot of the confusion is deliberate, based a lot of it on part of the media that want to imply things are being done unfairly to these illegal aliens, and also by the Democratic Party because they want to gum things up and suggest that everyone here has so many rights to due process. They in effect have a right to have a trial or something if they simply cross the border illegally. But here's basically the way it breaks down: if somebody commits the act of entering our country illegally, that's a crime in and of itself. It's illegal entry. The statute is 8 U.S.C. 1325. That's a misdemeanor. If they've done it before, meaning they've been deported and entered again, that's a felony, 8 U.S.C. 1326. But most of the people under the immigration law that are being removed under, is basically civil enforcement. Under the INA, the immigration officials can deport people based on civil enforcement. They're basically saying you're here illegally, we're trying to remove you. So this is actually a better thing for most of these illegal aliens. They're not criminally charged; they're just simply being removed. But here's what happens: say, for example, if somebody is sitting in a jail in, say, Fairfax County, Virginia, that doesn't honor immigration detainers, but they're charged. They want to remove them just civilly. They're given essentially what's called a notice to appear in an immigration court, and then they have a hearing in front of an immigration judge. And the immigration judges are not Article 3 judges. They're judges within the Department of Justice. And when an illegal alien has a hearing in front of those judges, they can assert claims if they have a claim that they're actually allowed to be here. Maybe they'll say they have some sort of protected status, or they might say they're claiming asylum, which means they fear torture or persecution back in their home country. So if they get deported, they will be, according to the claim, they would be tortured back there. So that's why they say they should get to stay. So they have that hearing in front of a judge. Most of these people are not going to claim any sort of right to be here. They're not going to say they're asylum, and they're not going to claim status. They're simply going to have a hearing, and they'll be ordered removed, and they'll get a removal order from a judge. If they don't like that order, or if their claims were denied, they could appeal it to the Bureau of Immigration Appeals, also not an Article 3 judge. So that's basically the process for the standard illegal alien in this country. So they get that process, and then they are removed or ordered removed from the country.
When you say Article 3 judge, in layman's terms, for people not familiar with all of the immigration laws on the books, what do you mean by that? What's the distinction?
Yeah, Article 3 courts are established by the Constitution, and these are basically, when you hear maybe in the news or something, a federal judge or something like that, that's an Article 3 judge. They're the judges that they hear violations of federal criminal law, as well as civil disputes and other things that have a federal nexus or bring them to federal court. There's approximately, I don't know the exact number, but I want to say about 600 federal district court judges, and each district court judge has a district in which they're judged. So where I live is the Eastern District of Virginia, and that would be anywhere from up in Northern Virginia all the way down to Tidewater. But basically, when they say a district judge, they have a geographic district. And so that's when you're so those are really, that's sort of big ticket courts. Immigration courts are not Article 3 courts, and illegal aliens don't have a right to go to an Article 3 judge in most instances. So that's where a lot of the disconnect happens, meaning the media disconnect, and what the Democrats are trying to suggest that every illegal alien should be able to go in front of an Article 3 judge and make the same sorts of claims they can make in front of an immigration judge. The reason that's not feasible, when I said there's 600 judges, and we are looking at probably 20 million illegal aliens. So the idea of every one of those illegal aliens, even if you divided them up around the 600 judges, you would probably take thousands and thousands of years to have all the cases adjudicated. So it's not practical, and it's never designed that way, and it was never intended that way.
So Barack Obama was nicknamed the deporter in chief by the media, and was criticized for deporting, I think, about around 3 million people during his tenure by the left. What process? But there was never any backlash like there is against the Trump administration. What process did Barack Obama use to service the due process of these illegal immigrants and deport them?
It would have been the same process that the Trump administration is using, and a lot of it, there's something called expedited removal, which are people that have been here less than a certain period of time and within a certain geographic area of the border. They don't even go to immigration court. An immigration officer can simply make a determination if they're here illegally, and if they've been here under a certain period of time, they could be removed. But you're exactly right that Barack Obama didn't do anything different than President Trump's doing, and people didn't complain, which begs the question why they didn't complain, because the answer is they hate Trump and loved Obama. But the other thing is President Obama, wasn't trying to really deter people from coming here. So he was still, in a lot of respect, bringing a lot of people in, and then deporting some of them. So I think what is sort of, not only is there the anti-Trump bias of both the media and the Democratic Party, but also what Donald Trump is doing, he's deterring anyone from coming here illegally. I think the numbers at the border are down anywhere 95 to 97 to 99% down, meaning people aren't coming here. They know they're being, they're going to be deported and be treated seriously. And another thing that both Obama did, because I was an assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia when Obama was the president, they charged a lot of people under the criminal offenses that I talked about, both the 8 U.S.C. 1325, which is illegal entry, again, just as somebody walks across the border from Mexico, they have no right to be here. That's illegal entry. And illegal reentry, which are people that have been deported before, come back again, and that's a felony. Barack Obama, they prosecuted a lot of people under that statute, and this is something that is really effective and that Donald Trump is doing now, and you see a lot of it in L.A. right now, but also throughout the country. They're focusing on this, particularly in sanctuary cities. There are a lot of people sitting in local jails that have committed local crimes. Again, they could be assault, battery, could be DUI, could be, maybe sex offenses. And they've also been deported before, so they can easily be charged with illegal reentry, which is a felony offense. It's a federal felony offense. That gets them into the Article 3 court. But the good thing about that offense is it makes it much easier to deport them, because they've been convicted, and a lot of times they will plead guilty and agree to be deported for a more lenient sentence. But a long answer to a short question that you had, Barack Obama was doing the same process. Those people were not going to the Article 3 courts. They were not getting trials, and they're not getting anything like that. But the media, again, always tries to portray everything President Trump is doing as somehow it's wrong, somehow it's nefarious. And you look at what President Trump's been doing by and large at the beginning, what are we, 100 plus days out, they've been focusing on criminals, gang members, people that are threats to national security, threats to public safety. And that's the most interesting thing and somewhat alarming thing about this is the Democrats are fighting President Trump removing gang members, removing people that are threats to public safety, people that have been convicted of crime. And it really just shows how radical, when you compare to the Barack Obama presidency, which really just ended, what, like, 8 years ago, the Democratic Party has shifted so dramatically that they fight now even deporting the most serious criminals. That they're storming
Hmm.
ICE detention
Facilities in New
centers,
York, yeah, in Newark, yep, getting
and
arrested.
it's just really astonishing. And you always talk about, you hear people talk about these 80-20 issues. This illegal aliens that commit crime, I think, is like a 90-10 issue, and the Democratic Party is at the 10 on that. I mean, I think the latest poll I saw was like an 87-13, but it's almost a 90-10. And certainly for the gang members, I bet it's probably 95-5, and the Democratic Party is the 5 because they are for full on open borders, and they want to give amnesty to virtually everyone that's in the country. And we're probably looking upwards of 20, 30 million people.
Now, I mean, one of the things that Donald Trump has said repeatedly is that, Joe Biden opened the doors to the southern border, allowed everyone in. There's up to 20 million illegal immigrants in this country just in 4 years. And to give them all their due process would be ridiculous, something that you already pointed out. But I think what also adds confusion to this story is the use of the Alien Enemies Act. This has been invoked for the first time by the Trump administration for expedited deportations. Can you talk to me about that and if that is the most effective tool to use for deportations, given all of the confusion that has ensued within the courts?
It's one of the many effective tools. And basically, the Alien Enemies Act was passed, what, like 1790s.
Mhm.
But the point of it was to give the executive branch the discretion to remove people that are harmful to this country. If it's a predatory incursion, is one of the words they used. And the Trump administration has declared Tren de Aragua a alien enemy, and they're working in conjunction with the Maduro government in Venezuela. But this is a way, after being declared this, and now we're going through the courts. But I think what's important about this allows President Trump and the Trump administration to make decisions on who an alien enemy is and remove them from the country. And this is a very good way to get rid of, when we have so many of these gang members, it's Tren de Aragua, which incidentally, I prosecuted gangs for 17 years as a federal prosecutor. And I say that only because nobody had ever heard of this gang until the Biden administration brought them in, and they were essentially flying them in. But yeah, this will be an effective tool. It's hemmed up right now in the courts. My reading the tea leaves on this, the Supreme Court is going to say it's appropriate for them to use this, but they're going to put some procedural safeguards in place, meaning maybe time limits for the aliens to contest their detention. But ultimately, what's going to happen, in my view, will be the only thing they'll be able to contest is, are they a gang member or not? They're not going to have a full trial. It will be the government presenting some evidence that they're a member of the gang, and then they have the opportunity to refute it. But ultimately, people are not going to contest these very often if they think they're going to lose. And that's what happens in the immigration courts as well. They don't really contest things that they really have no claim. So this will eventually be a very effective way to remove the most dangerous people out of the country. It's not going to be the only way, but it's going to be another way. So I think it was smart for them to use it. It's certainly getting a lot of attention in the courts, but ultimately, I think it breaks their way, meaning the President Trump administration way. But the thing that's just so awful about this is the only reason we're even talking about this is because of what the Biden administration did, which was bring these people in, knowing so many of them were public safety threats, and simply not caring. They always put the interests of illegal aliens and the Democratic Party's political interests ahead of the safety of the American public.
Well, I mean, we've seen that, right? We saw that with the Milwaukee judge, Hannah Dugan, a few weeks back, basically with an illegal alien in her courtroom that was charged of battery. The victims were there in the courtroom, and she heard the ICE was on the scene, and she escorted him out the back door. And then we see it at the detention facility in Newark, where the mayor was arrested for trespassing. You had members of Congress assaulting ICE outside the facility. Can you speak to this radicalism and 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 how did we get here?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to me, and I really think if you sort of take a step back at the Democratic Party, at some point they decided there's more political gain from being the party of illegal aliens and open borders as opposed to what they used to represent, sort of the working people. So they basically traded the working class for illegal aliens. So they view illegal aliens as a current and future voting bloc. And that, so I think it's radical in the sense of, yeah, it's all illegal aliens at all costs. And you even heard like Senator Van Hollen referred to, Maryland Man, the person that, the gang member that he's been trying to bring back to the country. He's referred to him as a constituent. And I think that's exactly right. They're actually sort of super constituents because the Democratic Party pays more attention and is more interested in the well-being of illegal aliens than they are the American citizens. And you just look at, the amount of taxpayer dollars we spend. I think it's upwards of 150 billion plus a year just on illegal aliens, just on sort of essential services, and it doesn't factor in lower quality of medical care, education, things like that. But I think that's really the decision. They made the decision that illegal aliens, that's the way we're going, because the Democratic Party, as you know, it really is right now, as far as I can tell, it's the party of identity politics, abortion, and anti-Trump. And this is sort of part of the identity politics wing. So I think the radicalization is they're part of the Democratic Party, the far left, which I think the party is actually far left, but in terms of within the party, they don't think borders are appropriate at all. They almost have this sense that we don't have a legitimate right to control our borders since we are not legitimately here as a country. We took the land unfairly. And the second part is just simply cynical politics. And you see this, just one quick point is every time, there's any effort to make safeguards on electoral policy to say you have to prove you're a citizen or to show ID, the Democrats will fight that harder than they will fight any other issue. And remember Merrick Garland at the end of the before the election, Glenn Youngkin tried to take people that self-identified as illegal aliens but were mistakenly on our voting rolls here in Virginia. He tried to take them off. The Department of Justice under Merrick Garland fought him on that. I mean, that's how extreme the Democratic Party is, that they view these as constituents and again super constituents, because certainly no American citizen or very few American citizens had as much representation in the previous administration, both in the executive branch and the Democratic Congress, as illegal aliens did.
Overall, how would you grade the Trump administration and Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, everyone working at ICE and at Border Patrol right now?
A plus, all of them. Tom Homan's amazing, carrying the message out. So is Kristi Noem, and they are doing this. And you look at these ICE agents, the amount of scrutiny they get, the defamatory statements that the Democrats routinely hurl at them, puts their lives in danger. They're just real quick. Their assaults on ICE agents has gone up 413% just this year. These are people putting their lives on the line to make it safer for all of us. And they've been doing a phenomenal job, and I expect it will continue, particularly if this reconciliation bill passes with a lot more resources for them.
All right, Jonathan, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.